Well, here we are. A survey finds half of professing Christians think sex outside of marriage is sometimes or always okay. Does that surprise you? Maybe it doesn't. Well, here we go. Washington, the Washington-based Pew Research Center revealed the results of a survey in which the organization asked sample Americans their views on dating and what is acceptable in relationships. Well, non-Christians were not surprisingly approving of fornication. The center found that many who profess to be followers of Christ think sex between unmarried adults is at least sometimes okay. Half of the Christians say casual sex, defined in the survey as sex between consenting adults who are in a committed romantic relationship, is sometimes or maybe even always acceptable. It actually said that 62% of Catholics take this view, 54 to 56% of Protestants say it's all good. And more than 1/3 of evangelicals, or 36%, said that casual sex is either sometimes or always okay. Out of the respondents who identified as non-religious, 84% said that casual hookups are always or sometimes okay, including 94% of atheists and 95% of agnostics. I'm actually surprised that 100% didn't go with that one. But anyway, the gap between professing believers and the faithless was a smaller margin if they actually attended church at least once a month. If it was at least once a month, it went down just a little bit. A majority of Christians at 57% say sex between unmarried adults in a committed relationship is sometimes or always acceptable. And then your stats to 67% of mainline Protestants goes on from there. And also explained that just over 1/3 of Christians think it is at least sometimes acceptable to have explicit sexually charged photos. Wow. Think about that. The Pew Research found that the answers were often related, again, to how often they went to church. If they went to church more often, it went down to 46%. Guys, that's still a huge, huge number. 46% said, hey, sex outside of marriage is okay. I don't know what to even go with this, but so here we have it. The poll was conducted in October of 2019 among 4,860 Americans, and we can go on with scripture from there, but I think you even see a little of this inside the Messianic Hebrew Roots community, because what is said and what is done are two different things. Because I know I talk to adults, young and older adults who are single, and you find out they've still engaged in sexual activity in our own communities. So how far, when we say it's okay and when we justify our sin, that's what it is. And that runs over. I mean, we just had the Pope come out and say homosexual union is fine. Where do we, I mean, look at where we are.
Pope who?
Pope Francis.
Oh, Pope Francis, huh? Okay.
He did. That was one of my other articles. He came out and said, that we shouldn't be persecuting. He didn't use the word persecuting, but, we shouldn't penalize basically those who are homosexual so they can't have families. So it should be okay to have yeah. And actually, if you look back when he was, what was his other name? Before he was the Pope, he came out over and over against that. And now, of course, he's done a 180 and he's like, it's good. Just do it. It's okay. I don't know.
It's all fine.
The moral fabric of our society. Does it surprise us when sex is in our face in everything that we see?
Well, that's true.
We've gotten to where we don't call sin.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
I mean, sin is sin. Is sin.
That's
you can put a new name on it to try to get away with, we're just making love. No, you ain't. You sinning.
You sinning. I like that, Sherry.
Getting rid of a fetus. No, you're murdering a baby.
That's right.
We call sin, and I do know for a fact that, yes, that is in Messianic circles, because I've known some of the young men, and I know that some of them have come to the conclusion that fornication, it was only talking about when in the New Testament, was only talking about when they went up to the temple prostitutes.
Oh my goodness.
Otherwise, it's not really talked about in the Torah. Well, I beg your pardon. It talks about a girl shaming her father and all this. And then I've heard the thing, well, if it's a divorced woman, you can have sex with her. And I'm talking about Messianic circles. I'm not talking about Christianity. I have heard this from the young men. And I'm like, sin is sin. I don't care what Messianic teacher told you that. That is sin. And there is that going around out there. And I'm telling you, it's sin. Sexual purity is very valuable to God. And sexual intercourse is the lowest form of marriage. It's marriage without vows, and God views it that way. So what are you going to do if you've had multiple partners?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sure.
So,
Sure.
you know, I'm not old fashioned. I'm truthful fashion. Sin is sin. Sin is sin. You will bust the bottom out of hell if you fall for that one. I mean, it's just that plain. It's not just that. It does great damage emotionally to people, especially women.
It does.
Get that close.
Think about the soul ties.
Yes. Yes, it does. God warned Bob and I when we were engaged, don't go there. And I literally had people ask us, well, I'm going like, well, what? You know, we wait till we take vows before God. That's what you're supposed to. And we were able to be a testimony to some of the younger people.
So were John and I. That same pressure. Well, no.
You know, so we were not supposed to go there. And, you know, we don't talk about, sometimes we think sex is taboo. Oh, you don't say the word. Oh, you don't. I'm going like, look, this is reality. And if we don't talk about it in the context, in our faith, then these young people are going to go out there and get their information from the world. And then that's where they get off. But if we stand up and we teach it in the right context, in what God has for us, he doesn't want us to do this because it hurts us. Everything he tells us not to do, it's just like you tell a child, don't touch that stove, it's hot. Are you being mean to the child? No, you're telling the child that's going to injure you. Okay. And then you've got kids that have to learn the hard way. They touch the stove and they get hot. Well, do you slap them around because they touch the stove? No, like a good parent, you comfort them, you fix it, and then you tell them don't touch the stove. Well, you know, some kids have to touch it more than once. Anyway, but you still, I mean, you know, you don't beat your kid up. He's a loving father. He gives us rules to live by to keep us from being hurt. And and you know, soul ties, it just causes a whole bunch of emotional things. And Peter, Paul, and Mary. Paul? It's either Paul. One of them says, like a man who, like when you do sexual intercourse, fornication, you sin against your own body. You hurt your own body because it hurts us. So God tells us these things, you know, to keep us from hurt and harm. It's not because he don't want us to enjoy us. I mean, I tell you, God made sex and he made it real good, but it has to be in the right context. I mean, that may shock somebody, but you know, the way I said that, but really and truly, I mean, you know.
That's all right. I'll edit it out. It's all right.
You know what, Sherry? Well, you're laughing because I agree with you. We should not be viewing sex as a taboo subject. We don't at Life of Worship, and even to our youth, we don't, because it's out there and it's real and it's beautiful and it's a wonderful thing between husband and wife. One husband, one wife. That's a whole nother issue. But we shouldn't think it's taboo. In other countries, you know, they're not so, which in that part it's good. But we should talk about sex to our kids. We should be the ones. And we should also glorify, God made it beautiful and wonderful between man and wife, husband and wife. And we should never be ashamed of that.
That's right. I mean, I've had people say, don't say that word around my kids. I'm going like, what? Don't say that word around my kids. Okay. You know, I respect them, but where is that child going to go if they don't address the subject? So, you know, that's on them. I'm not trying to criticize anybody because there is some kids are too young to even understand things. You know, it's like the old story. The little kid went to his daddy and mama and said, "What's sex?" And they sat down and they gave him this hour-long thing, you know, and they're saying, "Do you understand that?" He said, "Yes, but how do I fit that on this line here on my card?"
Good one. Yeah. Miscommunication. Yeah.
Mark, did you have a quick word you wanted to say?
Yeah, real quick. You mentioned sex without vows. And I've always understood and even, taught it, said it. If you have sex with someone and neither one of you had vows, you just did it casually, remember that person and you could do it with anybody. So, and you will most likely never know. So if you really like somebody and you have sex with them, outside of vows, don't get caught up in them, because that you just gave them license to do it with anybody else they want to, and you also have that same license. So don't get caught up in the fact that, hey, I don't want them having sex with anybody but me. Outside of vows, you have the legal license to do that. You personally give them that. Another thing too is, hearing Sandy's news story on this, I'm thinking that at one time, not long ago, I would have asked, what are the statistics that you just gave based on men? How many men versus how many women or girls, approved of sex? But anymore, it doesn't make any difference. It's male and female believe the same thing. As a matter of fact, when it comes to sex, you may just find that many girls believe more in promiscuity than men do. That's doubtful, but it's a good possibility these days. And so that's really all I have to add to that. So.
Well, we've seen a change in girls, because when I worked at the bank, one of the girls brought in one of that Chippendale male stripper things and put it up. And I remember thinking, that is so odd, because a woman is not naturally turned on by what she sees like a man.
Right.
And I thought that's just that's out of the norm for a woman. She responds more to hand holding and hugging and like that. So I thought that's weird. Unless the girl was made to take it down.
Unless they feel comfortable to do that. And in these days, it's so wide open, they feel comfortable to do that. So anyway, we
are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.